What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Bettin N Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Roscoe. And you know what, guys? I'm extra excited for this week because even after the huge weekend that was Belmont Festival weekend, congratulations, of course, to all the connections of Sovereignty, Junior Alvarado, Belmont, Godolphin, the whole works. Absolutely fantastic race that they put on last weekend. The whole festival was obviously as good as it always has been with all the amazing racing they have, and for my pocketbook. So graciously appreciated for that. But congrats to all who cashed on Sovereignty in the Belmont Stakes. But I am extra excited for this show because we're covering a first for the Bettin N Boozin podcast. We're covering Delaware Park, but also we love covering these small tracks because, especially on their good days, because they don't get to have too many. And this is one of the times where, you know, everyone's fresh off the Belmont. They want some place to bet all the new money they have in their pocket from winning it on Sovereignty. Where do they go? Going to Delaware Park, baby. The first inaugural running of the Delaware Derby, along with the Grade 3 Delaware Oaks. And actually, it's a very good card with lots of different ways that you can go. So welcome in, everybody. Thank you guys all so much for joining the show. We greatly appreciate it. Of course, if you guys enjoy the podcast as you're watching, please go down below the video player, hit the like button. And if you enjoy it and keep coming back on the regular and you aren't subscribed, why not? You're already coming back anyway. Please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell right next to it so you'll always get notified for any new podcast that arises here on the HHH Racing Podcast Network. Our normal shows are every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Tuesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern is Pacific Horseplayers with Noah, Ryan, and Jackson. They actually just had a really good show with an interview of Doug O'Neill talking about Raging Torrent winning the Met Mile, which that was an absolutely blinding run from Raging Torrent. So if you guys are interested in that after this podcast, go on and watch that as well. Of course, every single Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern right here with myself, Patrick, and Charlie on Bettin N Boozin. And every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, Picks and Ponies with Howard, Pete, and Paul. Of course, this time they are covering Haskell Preview Day at Monmouth. They're not going to want to miss that. So tune in tomorrow at 8 p.m. Of course, every single podcast that's also posted here to YouTube and X is posted in audio form, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor for those. If you guys are more audio listening, please go rate, review, and subscribe over there. TikTok and Instagram we have at Bettin N Boozin Podcast. So if you're into short form content, please go follow us over there. I continue to post every single weekend. And of course, when the spa starts up, of course, Saratoga here in about a month, that will be alive and true with horses to play every single day. Power Picks, guys, it's our tip sheet here for the HHH Racing Podcast. And if you're not subscribed to it, you are missing out. Only $4.99 a weekend. It's billed $21.60 a month through patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast. We've had 862 total picks since February of 2021. If you're keeping track at home, that's 4.5 years for all you math majors out there, and well over the positive mark in the ROI section. Again, guys, they pay for themselves. I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible. They pay for themselves. If you're not subscribed, you are missing out. Patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast. Link is also in the description for one of the best and most affordable tip sheets out there. And of course, you can look at previous editions of those Power Picks before you subscribe. Or if you just want to learn more about the podcast, please go to hhhracingpodcast.com. But guys, we will get right into it. But I will give a shout out briefly to to our racing stable here in a second. See, a bunch of people are in the chat already. As you continue to join in, please go to the bottom right hand side of the screen and type both on X and on YouTube in the live chat if you guys have any questions, comments, or we're talking about the racing. Again, fantastic racing over at Delaware Park as we're covering 6 races today. We'd love to hear from you guys in the live chat. Guys, let's bring on my co-hosts and we'll get right into the handicapping. First, from the East Coast of New Jersey, Patrick Kunsel, and from Chicagoland area, also from the Ohio State University, Charlie Freeman. Gentlemen, welcome in. Look, Delaware Park, man. But again, it's actually a very, very good card on Saturday.
Yeah, it sure is. I'm excited to get into this one. A little bit of a, difference to what we were covering last week, but that's what the ebbs and flows of the racing calendar delivers. So I know Charlie's eager to get into this one.
Charlie's always eager to get gambling.
Well, no, that's fair, Pat. Yeah, no, I'm excited. I also had to make a little bit of a scummy bio name for myself because one of the people on our show, Noah, had actually pointed out to me after Belmont that he doesn't know if I was the only one, but he had pointed out that I did have the winner in all 3 Triple Crown races. So I had to make that flex, even though it's not, I guess, that creative this year.
Yeah, this guy. Anytime gambling comes around, this guy, and anytime he's right, Charlie will let you know. He'll let you know he's right. But either way, guys, it's going to be a fantastic show. We're covering races 5 through 10 at Delaware Park on Saturday. That is all stakes races and the late pick 5. Race 10 is a main special weight, but tell you what, guys, it's probably the most competitive race that we're going to talk about tonight. So wanted to cover at least the late pick 5 for all the viewers out there. But if we're covering 5 races, might as well add one more in there. We're not going to take too long with race number 5, which is a stake outside the late pick 5. But again, feel like we should add it anyway. Guys, also shout out to Crownsway Racing. If you guys know, have been fans of the podcast for a long time, they're great friends of the podcast, and I own now some type of stake in every single horse now that Crownsway has on offer. And I'll tell you what, guys, this is a very, very exciting weekend for the partners. And we're actually going to talk about one of those horses in this sequence today. Vote No runs in the Cape Henlopen Stakes at Delaware Park for $200,000. Otago runs at Monmouth on Saturday as well, which will be talked about tomorrow on the HHH Racing Podcast with Howard, Pete, and Paul. And Minnesota Money runs in the Churchill Downs, I believe, running against the champion 2-year-old filly in Immersive. So that'll be very interesting as well. But guys, triple stakes action for Crownsway. If you guys are bought in, congratulations making it here. And of course, good luck to all the partners. We're going to have an absolute fantastic time this weekend. And hopefully one of them comes through for us, Pat.
Yeah, and Otago won at Monmouth, right, already?
Very correct. He won last time out and got a 91 buyer, topping his buyer scale last time. This is obviously going to be an interesting race because there's a couple in there that are very good, and a lot of them that are cross-entered from this sequence into that race actually come at Monmouth on Saturday too. So multiple reasons to pay attention here, because not only is Otago running, but a lot of these horses in this race are actually going back and forth or cross-entered into that race as well. So a ton of different implications here, but good luck again to all the partners. We greatly appreciate it. But guys, we'll get right into the handicapping first here. Of course, Nectar of the Gods, you already knows what it is. Cheers to everybody out there, and let's make some money. Again, first race we're going to talk about, guys, as I said, is race number 5. And as I bring up the Equibase right now, it's the Alapocas Run Stakes, $100,000, 6 furlongs on the dirt, only a field of 7, which is why we're going to talk about a little bit short here, headed by the number 6 Bucherino. Of course, Buchero, bred Paco Lopez Velasquez at 8-5, Full Moon Madness, Irad Ortiz, Michelle Nevin at 2-1, and the returning Damon's Mound, Junior Alvarado, Bill Mott at 4-1 is your third choice. I'll bring up our picks on the screen right now. Patrick, very based on your part, going with Bucherino for Paco Lopez, but Charlie going a little bit off the beaten path. Look, completely understand the love for Damon's Mound. Came back off the long layoff last time out, ran very well. Expect him to be a little bit more dialed in here, but of course, like I said, we're only going to take 30 seconds on each horse in this race.
Yeah, and I don't know if you pointed out, I know you normally do, is when we get these, we don't get the morning line. So I didn't think Damon's Mound would be the favorite. I thought the 6 would be for sure, but I expected Damon's Mound to be second choice, probably somewhere around 5-2. So I'm a little surprised to see 4-1 here. Look, obviously the concern is going to be the layoff, but even though this race, Kyle, was a rough one for you and me and others to watch, as none of us needed Damon's Mound, but this horse off a massive layoff came and ran an incredibly game effort with Junior Alvarado and Bill Mott, and just fought Comedy Town and Classified, the 2 Saffies, tooth and nail to the wire, and was able to get the job done. When those are horses where Gulfstream's their home track, they'd been running regularly, were in the best form of their careers, while Damon's Mound had basically every excuse and reason in the world to basically do no running and maybe run a decent third, and you would have been happy. Obviously, it's another layoff again, but I trust Bill Mott with spotting his horses with Junior Alvarado. They're an electric connection. And I just think if Damon's Mound can continue to build off that form, especially now that I know I'm getting 4-1, I'd like to go with the 1 here.
And that was my kind of thinking, Pat, is what Charlie's talking about. Another layoff where did this horse go? I mean, talking about it, and I was going through the works to see like if there's any gaps or anything. The last race was ran January 18th, right? Came back for one work on February 9th at Payson, and then didn't work again until April 11th. Worked very well, and then got another break into May. Like, I could be just nitpicky here, because if you could argue he's probably the class of the race in here. It's just a matter of why the break, and will he not be as sharp again in this spot? Probably facing a little bit, you could argue a little bit better horses than last time in the state bred.
Yeah. Kyle, I had to do a Google search onto why to try and find something on Damon's Mound. If somebody wrote an article about him as to why that was going on. I couldn't find anything either. I'm not sure if anybody in the chat will have something. But yeah, I think this is obviously just to get a race in him prior to heading to Saratoga to hopefully get something run in the middle to late July. In a bigger race against a better field in here. But that's why I think the 6 Bucciarino is really interesting. I mean, Paco's had this horse running, very, very well last 2 times out. Obviously, has been bet in both races, but I thought that race against Subrogate, dueling in the stretch, that was a pretty fast race too. So I think this horse is in prime condition to run another big one. And this horse, does deserve, I believe, a graded stakes race in the summer. Getting into the deeper summer. I mean, because the horses run really well. I mean,
this is a grade 2 winner last year in the Gallant Bob. I mean, he was looking to be like the next big thing last year, and kind of just never really 2 years ago, never materialized. Then he shows up over a year layoff, comes into the Sunshine Sprint. I didn't like him that day, to be completely honest with you. I led Comedy Town, who he just beat by a neck. He ran well that day. But again, this second layoff, it's just super weird to me. Obviously, full trust in Bill Mott to get this horse home. But I was going to try to play against, because I didn't really know what the morning line was going to look like. And being the class of the field, I thought Damon's Mound would be lower than he is. So I agree with Charlie on that one. 8-5, Pat. I don't know about you. Granted, I understand why he's 8-5. I really like him this spot, and I think last time he kind of showed back to why I liked him previously. He showed the ability to rate a little bit, sit just off the speed. Now the fact that he's drawn outside of the other speed in this race could bode very well for Bucciarino, who, again, my love for Bucceros.
Yeah. No, listen, I hit on it. I just think that the last 2 times that Bucciarino's run with Paco, and especially that race against Subrogate. I mean, horses worked, only had to work once since that last race. It could be a quick turnaround, but why worry when this horse is fit, right? I mean, I think this horse is going to be ready to go again on Saturday.
I couldn't agree with you more. And this is not the first time Alfredo Velasquez has done this type of move with this horse. Last time out, he ran again off of 2.5 weeks rest, 3 weeks rest. And now he comes back into this race off another, 3-week rest type of thing. Could it hurt him? Maybe being a little bit too much of a pretty big step here. But either way, I really like Bucciarino. I would not bet this horse at 8-5. However, I think he's got a very, very good chance to win. The only other horse we'll talk about real quick, guys, is Full Moon Madness. Charlie, I'll leave it to you to close it out. Then we'll move on. Michelle Nevin, Irad Ortiz is now running at Delaware Park on Saturday. So obviously all of his horses, will get bet. And this horse definitely has races in the past that can win this race.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, the only concern is I don't know at 6 furlongs if it's going to be a little sharp for him. I just don't know if there's going to be quite enough pace. But I still think absolutely can get a piece. Has been running against, I think you could probably argue, the toughest competition of anybody in this field. Just coming out of consistent grade 2s and grade 3s over on the New York circuits. He's running against some nice horses. Surveillance has been consistent forever. Obviously, Quince Brew had a lot of hype at the time. Crazy Mason came back to run I think a 3rd or 4th over Belmont weekend. What you're talking about is a nice horse for Wesley. So has been running against a lot of really tough horses. Again, I don't know what you guys thought. This horse to me just screams one that's going to get a piece and probably be over bet. I just don't really think the setup's going to work out, but still absolutely has a chance in this spot.
Yeah, and Howard brought up my next point, stealing my thunder as usual. He goes full moon was scratched out of the Saratoga race for the spot where he was in against Mullican and Bookham Dano. Obviously, no chance there, but obviously this spot makes a lot more sense than the last one. And if Michelle Nevin thinks he can run really well here, then so be it. But I know he's going to get overbet, especially with Irad coming over to Delaware and taking the mount. In the Alapocas run, I'm going 6-4-1. Pat's going 6-1-4. Charlie's going 1-4-6. Everyone in the chat, greatly appreciate it. Katie, of course. Excuse me, Terry Frank is here. James, welcome back, James. Thanks so much. Matt Miller, of course, is here. John Laro, thank you very much for the kind words. Margie's Intention versus Paris Lily in the Delaware Oaks. Rematch of the Black-Eyed Susan. Definitely very good. Ryan Mistretta, I haven't seen your name before, my friend. Thanks so much for joining the show.
That's my buddy, Kyle. Hometown buddy.
There you go. How about that? But Toga can't come soon enough. I think we could all agree with Ryan there on that one. But either way, guys, please keep the comments coming. We would love it. But either way, guys, let's move on into the late pick 5 here, which starts with race number 6. It's the Obeah Stakes, I believe is how you say that. 150,000 mile and a 16th. 3-year-olds and up for fillies and mares. Draws a field of 8. And as I bring up the Equibase right now, you'll see the morning line favorite, the Talented Gun Song for Johnny V and Mark Hennig at 9-5. Second choice, the number 1, Sitamara, Junior Alvarado for Bill Mott at 3-1. And your third choice is shared between the number 3, Into Amore for Irad and Pletcher, and the number 7, Foxy Jr., Jaime Torres at 5-1. I'm assuming Into Amore is going to be the third choice, just judging by those connections. As I bring up our picks right now, Charlie, based as my friend, 1-5-3 for Charlie and I. Pat, though, is going a different way, going with the morning line favorite, the ultra talented Gun Song. And Pat, I'll tell you what, man, I don't know where she's been these last 2 races. She was really looking good last year, basically all of last year. Ran super well in the Black-Eyed Susan down at Parks, ran super well, and just lost to a head bite to Tarifa and the Mother Goose. She's come back. She hasn't done like any running though, but obviously a little bit easier competition here, you'd feel, and maybe able to get one over, maybe a little bit of a confidence boost.
Yeah, imagine she beat Torpedo in the Cotillion at 44-1. That would have been.
That's true. I completely skipped that one, but yeah,
no, it's all right. It's just as funny. I wanted to watch that race over again, and it was a great finish in that race. No, Kyle, you bring up a good point. Those last 2 races have not been good to start her 4-year-old campaign, but she's ultra talented, and I don't see why she can't get back to what she's been best known for. She gets back to a distance that she has been proven at. She has been running at the 1 mile distance, so I do think she prefers the longer distance in here. But you do have to question where she's going to sit. She does like to sit that stalking trip right off the leaders, and I think she should be able to do that on Saturday. I was between kind of what the 1 and the 3 for second. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about Sitamara and whatever you don't like about Gunsong. But Sitamara, that layoff, this tells me this is just a spot to get her going into Saratoga.
Yeah, I also thought that, Charlie, but I mean, she's working super fantastic into this race. So I don't know if she's necessarily is needing one here. Could eat my words, of course, on Saturday, Charlie, but I mean, she's run super good off a little bit of a layoff and has run super good at Delaware, just losing the power squeeze last year here.
Yeah, look, this is a horse that had a ton of hype, I remember, for her debut at Gulfstream, then was narrowly beat, came to Keeneland, and honestly didn't look to have a chance with how far back she started, only to get there late. And then I feel like she really made her statement to finally live up to the hype, as I remember her running as the favorite Derby weekend and just winning going away pretty convincingly. Then, like you said, disappeared for a while, came back off a decent layoff in the Delaware Oaks and narrowly lost to Power Squeeze, who's a really talented filly in her own right. And then you're right, kind of just disappeared again, then showed up in a grade 1. And obviously, trying to run against Torpedo Anna and Gunsong and others off a layoff as a lightly raced filly was a big ask, which you could see with the board, and just didn't do much running. And look, I think Pat's point is fair. And, like I hinted at with the first race we covered, I'm really relying on the, Junior Alvarado, Belmont we trust, and just hoping that, with what they've been able to do at bigger circuits against better horses can translate here as well. But I keyed in on what you saw, Kyle, as well. Hype that she had aside, she's just working so well in the mornings that, yes, obviously, if this was second off the layoff, I'd feel a little more comfortable to have actually seen a more recent proven effort. And I do think Pat makes a fair point. I feel like despite how well she's working, the fact that she's only in a race of this level and not in a graded stake maybe means she does need one, or this is a buildup. That being said, I don't see why, even if it is, just a race to build off of that, even if it's not her best, I don't see why she couldn't win here. I just feel like when I look at some of these others, I see horses light on figures. I have Into Amore underneath, but, this is a horse who doesn't really have any sort of race visually to me that catches your eye, something that Sidamar off a layoff can't match. Gunsong, obviously, in her earlier, in her campaign in 24, I would say is probably really tough to beat. But like you pointed out, Kyle, in her 2 starts since she came back, she hasn't really been the same. And I thought, if it was second off the layoff now, I'd be a little more excited in Gunsong and probably put her on top. It's just more so my concern is when she had a race second off the layoff in New York, she was still bet in a tough field as if she would bounce back, and she didn't really do much running. She sort of just tired and ran a disappointing 6th. So for me, I just think Sidamara is upside. I know there's questions, but I'm landing on her here.
And I agree. And I think Gunsong is really going to be bet heavily. It's just a matter of, do we get paid enough to bet Sidamara? I think we do. I'm willing to take 5-2 on this one. 3-1, obviously, all the better. Below 5-2 is probably something I wouldn't go to.
Agreed.
But 3-1, I'd be willing to take that price to figure out if she's ready to go here for this spot. Bill Mott is not a guy that trains his horses like Wesley Ward, who you look for those bullets and you find them. This horse is just, that's almost 4 straight bullets. That's 3 bullets, 1 out of 18, 1 out of 24, and 1 out of 51, and a 2 out of 57. So, she's rearing up to go. First time out at 4 years old, can show improvement. And again, like I said, I think we're going to get paid to find out in this race to try and beat Gunsong, who maybe just needs a little bit of a confidence booster, but she's going to get bet and not something. It's not a horse I'm definitely willing to take at whatever to 5. You mentioned Into Amore, Charlie, who I'll mention real quick, then we'll move on. Also cross-entered in the Monmouth, as is Gunsong, so keep an eye on the changes and scratches in come Saturday morning at Delaware Park. But Into Amore, I couldn't agree with you more, Charlie. It's one of those horses that if there is going to be one on the lead, this is the one that I want. However, she's not one that I can fully trust out in front. This horse lost my first winner at Keeneland. This was 2 weeks into the meet. So, take that for what it is, because I know I couldn't pick a winner to save my life at Keeneland, and I actually picked one in that race. So that also works. But all jokes aside, she's just one that I would need to see step up in a race like this. You might be able to get paid to find out. But again, China Horse Club, IRAD, Todd, if they run in this race, they're going to be bet. And if they're, on par with Sidamara's odds, I'd be much more inclined to take Sidamara over Into Amore. But again, I can completely understand why you want to trust this horse. And maybe if you want to catch this horse, this might be the time at the price that you're going to get, considering this horse has never been above 3-1 in any of her 5 races that she's ran previously. But either way, guys, in the Obeah, I'm going 1-5-3. Pat's going 5-3-1, and Charlie's also going 1-5-3 with me. Guys, let's move on to race number 7. It is the Cape Henlopen Stakes. And of course, it's the moment you've all been waiting for, my Crown's Way people out there. Shout out to Terry Frank, I know is definitely a part for sure. I don't know if he got into this new one, but I know he is a partner of Crown's Way horses, going 1.5 miles for $200,000. And as it always is, it seems like with this, it is the Field of Grandpas. As the morning line favorite, though, is the number 3, K Army, Junior Alvarado, and Bill Mott, the undefeated Chilean trainee. Obviously didn't come back to win first time in the States, but this will be second time out for Bill Mott. Second choice is the 9-year-old Irad Rick Dutrow at 7-2 Masterpiece. And out of the 2-hole, and your third choice is the number 4 Dripping Gold, Jose Lascano, Shug McGahee at 5-1. And guys, I'm bringing up our picks right now. We're both going 3 different ways. Patrick's going with a 15-1 on top, a horse that I had in there for the longest time, just ended up switching out last second. The number 6, Harrow, Mikel Sanchez, and Safi Joseph Jr. And Charlie's going with the number 3, K Army. I'll let Charlie go first to talk about the morning line favorite, Pat, but would love to hear what you like about Harrow, considering that this is a double-digit horse on top. But Charlie, what'd you like most, again, about K Army? Second time in the States. I know you're one of your fun angles.
Yeah, I decided to switch it up and go with Belmont and Junior Alvarado in this race.
Yeah,
like I did in the first 2. You kind of hinted at, Kyle, what I was going to build off of. An angle I talk about all the time. I don't know if the stats are right or wrong. It's just something I personally feel and believe in. Is I really do not like horses in their first start in America. I always think they need a race, which is why I key in on even more if they get entered into a really difficult race with some talented horses. And I usually love the angle of second time in America. And K Army kind of fits that bill. Started out 10 for 10 in her career before moving over to the U.S. And then, if you want to talk about a tough race to debut in, how about having to start against Deterministic, who just came back to win again? Carson's Run, who obviously didn't win, but came out of that same race and, ran a decent race underneath. Granted, Deterministic controlled that race. And to just be thrown straight into a grade 2, and on top of that, be bet down to a little over 2-1 against very proven horses that have had plenty of successful starts in graded stakes in America. For me, I love the second back in America. I don't think the distance will be an issue. She is more than familiar with the winner's circle. Like I was saying, Deterministic came back to win a grade 1 and ran a career best effort and has honestly just been in terrific form lately. So that's nothing to be embarrassed about to lose that one. Not worried about the 1.5 miles because obviously if you look at her efforts, she covered it, in her last race before moving to America and won going away by 6 lengths. Seems to be working well enough. And again, I love the angle second out. Obviously, I don't love the 5-2 price. I think these kinds of races are tough. These are normally spread races for me, but that's how I landed on the 3.
And I couldn't agree with you more on everything you just said about the 3. Granted, that race out in the Fort Marcy was slow. Like, there's no sugarcoating it. It was slow.
Agreed.
However, that was off over a year layoff for Belmont. This is the second time in the States, Charlie, which I know is a very fruitful angle for you in these types of races. Again, you're going out on a limb with Belmont and Junior Alvarado for feels like the 80th race in a row, but also a 5-year-old could show upside. You already mentioned it, ran a 1.5 miles in Chile and did perfectly fine with that both on dirt and on turf for that matter. But it'll be very interesting to see how K Army runs off the first race that this horse has ever lost in his entire career. So do like K Army, but I feel like this horse will be bet pretty heavily, and that could be something I could use to try and springboard other horses in here. Starting, and Pat obviously thinks so as well. Going with the number 6, Harrow in here. Mikel Sanchez, very, very good jockey out in the East Coast, runs at the Laurel, Maryland circuits a lot. So very, very good jockey out there for those that don't follow Northeast racing as much. Safi ships him in here after shipping to Barbados last time. Ended up winning that one over some pretty good horses, albeit grandpas with Smoking Tea and Jerry the Nipper. But you go back even, earlier in the year and last year, this horse definitely has numbers that fit in this race.
Yeah, I don't think this horse is going to be 15-1. Listen,
I'd be very surprised.
Yeah, the horse is going to come from out of it. That's obvious. I do wonder about the pace in here. It could be kind of fast. And I think this horse is shown at the distance. Oh, there you go.
Matt McJunkin.
I think that, I think the horse is shown with this distance is able to close into pretty good paces. I do question horses getting up there in age, but most of these horses are. And I cannot trust horses at short prices. Charlie makes a good case with the 3, and maybe I should go back and deep dive a little bit more into the 3 for Belmont. But I'm going to take a stand with Harrow in here. I think that Harrow, I should say. I think Safi places his horses obviously very well, and this is just interesting to me because the horse has been traveling all over the place. So obviously he has intent when he brings this horse all over. So I don't know, guys. I don't know if you think this horse is just way out of whack in here, but 15-1 on the morning line. If I can get half of that, I'll be happy.
I mean, I'll tell you, I said it at the start of when we were talking about it. Also, thanks, Matt, for joining the show. A very, very good tournament player in his own right. And I completely agree with what he's saying. A little more pace in here than you typically see in these 12 furlong turf races. So, Matt, thanks so much for joining the show, man. Greatly appreciated. I had this horse in there the whole time until I noticed the angles that Charlie was talking about with the 3. So I threw the 3 in there. I couldn't agree with you more about the lower prices. I mean, Masterpiece, like I said, is 9 years old at this point. I mean, the number 2, he's 7-2 on the morning line. Last 2 races were a 75 and a 76. Of course, running against very, very good horses. But, I mean, God, is that horse hard to trust now? It's 7-2, let alone what he might end up being. So I really do end up liking Harrow a lot in here. And whether he can get there or not in a 1.5 mile type race, he's shown in the past he ran very well at Kentucky Downs at a 1.5 mile, which could arguably even play longer than a 1.5 mile. I really do like Harrow, and it's the fact that even if you don't have him on top, if you're getting a good, even close to double digits, this is definitely one to throw out your exacta or throw in your exactas and trifectas for sure. Pat, you and I both have the number 4. I have him on top. You have him in second. This is a 6-year-old now coming out. This is another off the layoff, though, for Shug McGahee. That's another. I don't have any problem with Shug McGahee off the layoff. Last year, Kentucky Downs, 1.5/16, ran a huge race last year. Loves the longer distance. Ran pretty well at Saratoga in that optional claiming as well. Just didn't end up getting there. Kind of bunched up at the wire, but you can see in a lot of his long distance turf efforts, he's been pretty much right there, 3rd, 4th by a length and a half, stuff like that. I think he can run very well. It's not my obviously best pick on top of the entire sequence, probably one of my softer ones. However, if I get 5-1, I feel like that's a good enough price for the races that this horse has run.
Yeah, Kyle, I do like this horse a lot in here. The layoff, like you said, is my only concern. I went back and watched that race at Keeneland back in October because that was a pretty salty field in there, as most of those fields usually are. And the horse ran very, very well, considering the trip, I firmly believe, and the pace that was in there. So if we can get this horse back on track off this layoff, I don't see why this horse, couldn't vie for favoritism. We got to watch the board in here because this horse is ultra talented.
Oh yeah, and obviously, if this horse drops down to favoritism, I mean the whole shebang. I couldn't agree with you more. Don't want this horse any part near favoritism, but however, again, you know how much of a sicko I am. Aurelia, by Danzig, the Dam. I'm like, Aurelia, where have I heard that name before? You look back, sibling PPs obviously dripping gold. Aurelia's Bell. Number 2nd progeny in there. Winner of the Arlington Oaks in 2014 by any chance, and ran in the Pucker Up in 2014 as well. I'm just sicko, but obviously Aurelia's Bell also ran the Kentucky Oaks after winning the Bourbonnette. Little bit of the Paul OFS, Oaks fever syndrome, putting it back into the Bourbonnette. The horse is always a turf meant horse. So lots of long turf pedigree in there as well. So definitely looking to the number 4 dripping gold on top for me. I'll talk about my horse last, guys. I'll spare you guys the long spiel. But you guys both have the 5 in there as well. Desvio for Madison Myers and I think it's William Hamilton, if I'm not mistaken correctly. I'll check my work on the side here, but ran really, really well in the dinner party, Charlie, last time. And obviously you think both of you think this horse has a pretty good chance in here. Charlie, you have 2nd, Pat, you have 3rd.
Yeah, no, I think this is a spread race. I mean, again, it makes me excited, like you guys have been talking about how, outside of my 3, a lot of the other horses we've been discussing about have been middling off.
Weston, sorry, Charlie. Weston Hamilton is the document.
All good. Not being the main favorites like Masterpiece or some of these others. I think there's a great race where, if you want to pick one of the favorites, like for me, the 3, and then find a few prices like the 5 and Pat 6, who I have in 3rd, I think this could really be one of the leg to blow it open. But I think this 5 is fascinating. I understand, obviously, he's been a big price. Look at his last 4 races, 22-1, 20-1, 35-1, and 48-1. But he's also been pretty much consistently running in graded stakes races, which a lot of these others can't say. And has been running against horses who, if they were in this field, would be, 2-5, 1-5, 3-5, whatever in this spot. And has continuously run some really solid game efforts. And the other thing I really like is, that effort 2-back, obviously 35-1, was first off a pretty decent layoff. So that was probably part of the reason the horse is cold on the board. And then gets a stretch out, which is what I think, honestly, he wanted. I don't think he wants to be running a mile flat. I think he wants more distance, the better. And, for 2nd off the layoff to pop a career best buyer 94. And also, as you touched on earlier, Kyle, where there's some of these Graham sources, the 5's only 4 years old. This is 3rd off the layoff, seems to be getting better and better. these aren't well-recognized connections, so you're going to get a fair price, and is been a horse who's continuously offered you fair prices. At the very least, I think the 5 makes sense as a horse to use in the underneaths if you want. But again, horizontally, this is one I would absolutely, and obviously, Pat, you can add on if you agree or not. Obviously, you have the horse in your top 3, but I think this is one you'd absolutely have to use in the horizontals. He's done nothing wrong.
No, he hasn't. And considering the odds he's been, Charlie, in some of ththese races, I'm not sure if that's beneficial for us, if we should be taking him at 8-1, but I do think the horse has run against in fields that put him right in the mix in here. So, I can't really be too negative on the fact that this horse has been huge long shots in some of these, especially stake races, to be honest with you. But listen, the horse has been right there. Has been kind of consistent. We just gotta see if he's going to sit the right trip and appreciate this distance.
And I mean, this horse is, you want to look, horse for course angle as well. This horse won at 1 mile and 3/8 here at Delaware Park last year in the summer. Ridden by Ben Curtis, who's obviously taken off on his stateside career, but was bet to 7-1 in the Virginia Derby last year against Deterministic. So obviously, when the Virginia Derby was a turf race and not a state and not a Derby leading stakes race, but he's been good. It's just a matter of where did that buyer really came out of nowhere last time. Second off the layoff, first time out at 4 could be your very big angle in there that. He's just improving with age now, gets back to a little more distance, probably what he likes even better. And 8-1 price could be very square. And I agree with Charlie, being the local based connections when people gravitate toward these tracks, which they haven't played in a lot or at all before. On these big days, these local based connections kind of get left a little bit by the wayside in favor of those, Shug McGahees and stuff like that are invading back into Delaware Park for these stakes races. So I really like the pick, guys. Anywhere in the money for Desvio, I would not be surprised at all. Last horse we'll talk about, guys, and Vote No really reminds me of Desvio in a way like that, right? Where last time out ran super well. Although Vote No's shown a little bit before, ran an 84 at Turfway in the winter. However, last time out, guys, I'll try and talk as unbiased as I possibly can. The last race was very, very, very good. I'm going to be I won't sugarcoat it at all. The last race was very good. I wouldn't say it was not expected, I guess, from our point of view at Crownsway. However, this is a horse that Tony's wanted since the sale at 2 years old. You can see he's back here at the 9, running in about third to last right now. And they did go decently quick up front. But again, there's pace in this 1.5 mile race. And you'll see Adam gets a great ride, tips out all the way out. And you can see just this horse is very push button from what I saw. This horse goes and just flies by the entire field, and really galloping out really well to all the way to the wire, and continues to gallop out more. The first thing that was said after this race from both Kelsey and Tony, by the way, that was a mile ran in 1:35.4. That's a very, very good time on the turf, especially at a mile. And again, galloped out really well. The first thing that was said out of Kelsey and Tony's mouth was they think this horse can go longer. And they don't usually it was very, very quick. And the fact that he shows up here shows me that Kelsey has a lot of faith and thinks that he can run this type of distance in here. So I'm going to take a shot with him. And if he's 15-1 in here, I'll gladly take that. Charlie, I know the jockey selection is probably not to your favor. However, I'm perfectly fine with him riding in this race as long as he can give me, because we won't be in front at the quarter pole and he won't need to give 8 look backs to see if anyone's behind him. So if he comes flying and runs a fantastic, at least in the money, I honestly believe he could win this race if he continues to take a step forward off that last race. Because again, a lot of these horses that are favored in this race are 7, 8, 9 years old at this point. Of course, minus the 3. He has just as much upside as the 5 does that you guys like to take another step forward for his, basically third time out as a 4-year-old. So, and more than ready, Kitten's Joy to Visadero, this horse could easily is bred for the distance as well. So I really, as objectively as I can say this without putting my bias in there, I really think Vote No has a chance to run well and at least include him underneath in your exactas and trifectas. In the Cape Henlopen Stakes, guys, I'm going 4-1-3. Pat's going 6-4-5. Charlie's going 3-5-6. Guys, before we get into the first ever running of the Delaware Derby, if you guys are enjoying the show here on YouTube or on X, if you're watching on X, please come over to YouTube and give us a like on this video. We would greatly appreciate it because it shows us that you guys are enjoying the content, but also it pushes these videos out into YouTube to bring more people to the HHH Racing Podcast. And of course, for that, we would greatly appreciate it. But guys, the first running of the Delaware Derby, it's a very exciting race, and it's actually drawn some pretty good horses in here, headed, of course, by the morning line favorite of the number 3, Admiral Dennis, Luan Machado, and Brad Cox at 3-1. Second choice, the number 8, Surfside Moon, the Pennsylvania bred, for Junior Alvarado and John Lawrence at 5-1. Third choice is shared between the number 2, Academy, coming off a really nice race at Delaware Park, and the number 6, Kentucky Outlaw at 6-1. Guys, bringing up our picks right now. See, 2 of us are going with the number 3, Admiral Dennis. Pat, you're going with the second choice, Surfside Moon. Junior Alvarado is a very hot commodity on this podcast today, and obviously with his track record, especially within the past couple months, pretty rightfully so. But Pat, I'll let you go first. What'd you like most about the number 8, your pick for the inaugural running of the Delaware Derby, Surfside Moon?
Yeah, listen, Surfside Moon, PA bred, has just been running, ultra consistent, running some pretty big stake races up in New York. Ran into Captain Cook, 3 back in the Withers and completely outran his odds at 33-1 that day. I thought he ran very well in there. And then that race at Laurel, I kind of wanted to make an excuse there, just really didn't have it that day, to be honest. So gets back into the Peter Pan, and I know, Kyle, we wanted to show the replay of some of that race in the Peter Pan because, my gosh, Surfside Moon did not have it his way that day. And was 17-1 on the board and did face, obviously, Hill Road, McAfee, and Captain Cook, who finished in the top 3. And
you're looking for the number 3 here, Pat, going into the first turn.
Yeah, number 3 in the first, right about into the first turn, did have to check pretty hard there, did lose some space in there. So settled in nicely, but then gets to the far turn and was on the rail and did deal with some trouble and had to steady again and completely took him out of the race. I think it was a little before that, Kyle, but
was it? Sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
Oh, right there.
Yeah, there it is. By the 6, I believe, Uncaged, who ran really well in the Belmont Stakes.
Yep.
But listen, no, ended up finishing, decent considering all the trouble in there. So I want to bet this horse today because and it's more to do with kind of being against Admiral Dennis in this spot. I think there's more to what Admiral Dennis is trying to do, and this is just going to be a kind of get back into form race for the 3. So yeah, no, I think Surfside Moon is in with a big shot.
Obviously, Charlie, you and I think the same. We both have the horse in second. This is just one that kind of doesn't like to finish its food per se. It's just one. I mean, has been running in pretty stout competition, at least in 2 of the last 3. But I don't know. It's just 1 win out of 8 tries, and the 1 win was a 51 buyer on the Delaware turf last year. So one I couldn't, stomach picking on the win end. However, easily is in with a shot here.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look on paper, the numbers, I think there's a reason we all have 3-8 or 8-3 as our top 2. I do think Surfside Moon is the only one competition and figures wise who really looks a threat to beat Admiral Dennis. But like you said, Kyle, I just have some concerns that while look, I know he's only 3, he's going to keep improving and getting better. That last effort, like Pat pointed out, ran into a little more trouble than a lot of people, including myself, probably initially realized looking through it. I just think he needs to take another step. I think he's going to have to come from out of it. And like you said, Kyle, he just hasn't quite been getting it done to get to the win end, and he just kind of screams like a horse that's going to run his race, is going to be showing up late coming for home, and he'll probably run a nice second or third. I just, for me, don't see enough yet in his career where I trust him enough to pick him on top over Admiral Dennis, who, look, I understand by no means has unfortunately lived quite up to the hype that I think we thought this horse was going to. Obviously, Kyle, if we can move to Admiral Dennis,
yep.
Was favorited on debut. Got an interesting ride from Florent Giroux. I'll leave it at that. And ran third. I know, Kyle, you think he's a phenomenal jockey, but just, doesn't always have it. And then came back with Luis Saez aboard and was able to get it done. And obviously less than even money, but, was able to rate, which was nice to see. Appreciated the extra distance and one going away. And then went into the gun runner, which with a ton of hype. And then this has kind of been an issue for him. He's been having some trouble with his starts, whether it's, he's at a stutter step or he was off slow or he stumbled. He's had a lot of issues with his brakes lately. But then again, bounced back by that in an optional claiming. And then in the Rebel, his race was pretty much over after he blew the start. And then I got he got a setup, but he doesn't want to be that far back in the first place. And then I just think, quite honestly, in the Bluegrass, he's just not at the level of a Burnham Square or East Avenue, who came back to the two of them to run nicely in a stakes race at Churchill. I just think Admiral Dennis is the class of the field. He's working really well in the mornings. I feel, for me personally, Kyle, I don't know about you. I know you have him on top as well. I just feel like as long as he breaks cleanly here and can sit a nice trip where he's not too far back, I just don't see someone in this field that beats him.
Yeah, I think he is talented, and I was going to mention that Howard had a Derby future on this horse. Said my Derby future horse, one of them at least, the Admiral. Gut tells me he needs to mature and grow up a little bit. Might have a nice second half of 2025. I agree with you. I still think there is pretty decent talent. I mean, he got a 92 last time and ran a pretty nice closing fourth against horses like Burnham Square and East Avenue in the Bluegrass. Kept them right at Keeneland, still working really well. Coming into that race, stayed there afterwards, came back, about a month later or so, started working at Keeneland. And to my eyes, Brad Cox does this a lot with his, maybe horses that either need to take another step forward or maybe just a little bit of a echelon below hand. He loves running in the Indiana Derby. He loves running in these types of races, Ohio Derby and stuff like that with his horses that might just not be to the top echelon yet. So even though Admiral Dennis shows up in this spot, that does not sway me one bit. If Admiral Dennis breaks and runs his race, Charlie, I agree. I'm chalking out here. I really think that it's his race to lose. And Academy's the last horse I'll mention, then we'll move on, guys. The last race was gigantic. However, that was in an off-the-turf race in the slop at Delaware Park, and frankly, that number came out of absolutely nowhere. Yeah. Maybe first-time dirt. Maybe the horse just wants to be on the dirt. But man, is this horse going to be really bad off that last race, guys. And I don't know if I have the stomach to take him at 4-1 or 9-2, because I don't think you're getting 6-1 in this race at all. Talked about it. The invading connections always get bet on these types of races, and often off the turf effort in literally where one other horse wanted to be on the dirt that day. And it's the horse that he beat by 4.5. I just don't think the price is going to be right to take a horse in his real first-time dirt effort. So we'll see what happens with Academy, but definitely in there at least. I think you guys would all agree that he's more of an underneath and definitely looks to be overbet in this race. Howard wanted to bring up Pascaline in this race, has been goofy and green in his starts, gets blinkers and has talent. Second time 2 turns. Holy crap. Like that angle too. It's 10-1, ran really well in the Bayshore, and now again, second time 2 turns, as Howard said. So Pascaline at 10-1. Howard says, do not sleep on him last year. Guys, this year. Moving on to the Grade 3 Delaware Oaks. But first, in the inaugural running of the Delaware Derby, I'm going 3-8-2. Pat's going 8-3-2, and Charlie's going 3-8-2 as well. Charlie, you are based today, my friend. Let me tell you, guys, we'll move into the co-feature, but what is really the feature on the entire day? It is the Grade 3 Delaware Oaks, a mile on the 16th, and it is basically a reprise of the Black-Eyed Susan Stakes with the top 2 finishers there coming back. We're talking about the Belmont Stakes, top 3 runners in the Derby, whatever. Top 2 runners coming back out of the Black-Eyed Susan, which, of course, a race like this, the Delaware Oaks, for a little while has been that next stepping stone for a lot of these fillies. So good to see that we're running back in here, and good to see we have a bunch of horses coming back from that, including, again, like I said, the top 2 finishers. Shout out to Matt McJunkin. He says, I think we need a special ascot, Bettin N Boozin next week, where the boys only drink Pims. Hey, you had me a drink, Matt McJunkin. I'm in, my friend. You just say when you say jump, I'll say how high. But either way, guys, let's look at who we're picking.
Those shows are awesome for
Oh
Ascot that we have. I can't wait for those.
And thank you for bringing it up because Davy Lane's back this week. We're going to, I think there's a live show on Sunday and a preview show coming this week as well, guys. So again, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell. You're not going to want to miss that. And of course, I know Pat's looking forward to it because race 1 has hit the return of his boy, unfortunately not in the States anymore, of course, being Carl Spackler. I almost just spilled my beer everywhere. But either way, guys, let's see who we like for the Delaware Oaks. Patrick, my friend. Charlie, you're not based anymore. Patrick is based now. Both going with the number 5, Paris Lily. Charlie is going with the number 4, Margie's Intention. And guys, in a race where, there's some pretty low prices that we're kind of getting rid of here, i.e. the number 7, Fondly. Charlie, I know you like him, considering that horse might run 3 times in the week at Keeneland. I believe that was Fondly, right? That weekend, who was running, entered 3 times in 1 week. That we always made a joke at Keeneland that he was going to run again, or she was going to run again the next week.
Yeah, it was her, and it was one of the Wesley Ward horses. It was those 2 that just were entered everywhere and anywhere. Yeah,
it's fantastic. But either way, Charlie, I'll let you go first because you are the odd man out here and going with the morning line favorite, the number 4, Margie's Intention, coming out of course, the winner of the Black Eyed Susan, but really did get a nice setup that day. But in your eyes, second time off the trainer switcher Brad Cox, she could take another step forward.
Yeah, look, we covered this race, the Black Eyed Susan. So, we're seeing a lot of returners to who we recently have talked about. And yeah, I landed on her on that day too. I don't remember if she was the morning line favorite on that one or not, but I think I hinted at that she was definitely going to go off as the morning line favorite. Second time for Brad Cox. Now, I think he's really got her in good form. I understand your viewpoint that she got a good trip. I don't entirely disagree. That's part of the benefit of when you get Flavien Prat aboard as your jockey.
Correct.
But I still think Luan Machado can get it done here. She seems to be working just fine, and I just think she's steadily building. I understand, obviously, she hasn't had, a big jump in buyers yet, and that she's kind of just been ultra consistent, though, which is one of the things I did like about her is, outside of her debut, she hasn't really run a bad race yet. 6 career starts, 3 first, 2 seconds. But I also just feel like with, especially with these 3-year-old fillies, we don't typically see massive buyer jumps. It's not as common as we would see with the 3-year-old colts. So for me, that doesn't bother me at all. I like that. I know what I'm going to get. I think she's versatile. I don't think by any means, she has to sit too far back. I think if they're going too slow, that Luan will be happy to sit pretty close. I think if they are picking it up, that, he'll be happy to have her sit back. I just like that versatility. I thought she, did exactly what was expected of her last time to win. I know the mile on the 16th, obviously on a slight cutback for a horse who's going to be off the pace may seem concerning, but she was just fine at a mile flat at Fairgrounds, so it doesn't bother me at all. And again, I just think that consistency and versatility is something that's hard to find, especially in 3-year-old fillies. So I'm not going to hop off the bandwagon with her now.
Pat, I will tell you what, in that Black Eyed Susan, they went pretty damn fast in that day. And if you could look at the pace figures here, really, Paris Lily was the only horse to stay anywhere near the lead. You can look down the way. The horses that were anywhere near her in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th all ended up finishing in the back. I mean, besides Running and Gunning, who was in the back the whole way through, you have Liam in the Dust, Princess Aaliyah, and Mooncash, who all were 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, actually, respectively, early. They all finished in the back, all fading, and Paris Lily only ended up losing by 3/4 of a length, Pat. And I'll tell you what, I don't see it nearly as much speed in this race as they did last time.
Yeah, no, I'm just laughing at the chat. Listen, Margie's Intention, that she got a dream trip, right, Kyle? I mean, come on. Paris Lily ran the bang-up race. She, gets to the top of the lane, and I'm thinking Joelle's going to get her more out off the rail to kind of push Margie's, a little ways out. But, Paris kept on with it and ran strong. My thing here, Kyle, is I think the mile and a 16th is going to be much better for her. You shorten up a little bit here with that early speed. Hopefully she's going to be able to go on the front end. They can move, she can move quickly. She's proven that, quick fractions aren't that big of a deal with her. So I'm happy with the mile and 16th. And if I get 9-2, that'll be great.
A little bit of the old irresponsible wager of the week, Pat, if you catch my drift. 9-2, would absolutely love that on Paris Lily. We'll see if we end up getting that. My 2 angles, Pat, you hit on them both. I don't think there's as much pace in this race as there was last time. The other thing, actually 3, I guess. And even if she doesn't get the lead here, because I think the 3 Complexity Jane coming out of Brittany Russell's barn is also pretty quick. I think she'd be happy to sit just off the flank of the 3 and get a jump on a horse like Margie's Intention. But also the mile and the 16th versus the mile and the 8th. You could see her really starting to tire. She actually ended up switching back leads in the last 16th of a mile. So getting back to that mile and the 16th race, and she's been working the last 2 works since that Black Eyed Susan have been fantastic. She worked 47-3 and 48-3. So I really, really, really like Paris Lily in this spot. And again, the Godolphin barn as hot as ever right now. So I'm not hopping off that bandwagon, and Joel Rosario on the lead is the one place that I either like him there or I like him in the clear about 80 lengths back. Those are the 2 places that he tends to run very, very well. But I really, really do like Paris Lily. Guys, Cassiar is the last horse we'll mention. And then I want to mention Fondly real quick with you, Charlie. But Pat, I'll talk Cassiar, and then Charlie, feel free to enter anything in that you want. As you, Pat, and I both have her in second, you have her in third. This horse, I mean, she's coming off a very, very nice run in an optional claiming at Aqueduct last time, the 1 turn mile, now coming back to 2 turns. Could it be what she doesn't want to do? Sure, but I like that Shug McGee, he's taking another shot, which could be a pretty talented filly.
Yeah, Kyle, I remember we were covering the Gulfstream Park Oaks with 5G in there, and I tried to beat 5G with her.
You did, yeah, that's right.
I really thought that Tampa race was really impressive, considering the trip being wide most of the way. And then, obviously gets to Aqueduct and runs, like you said, a great race. So I can't hop off of her, but I just think Paris Lily's going to get the trip in here. But I would prefer, obviously, with my picks, the 6 over the 4. I honestly think, she's in a spot now where she's getting to become really good.
And just the odds. I mean, at the end of the day, right? Margie's Intention 5-2, Cassiar 6-1, running the exact same figures. Again, the distance is the concern with Cassiar. Obviously, Margie's Intention is very proven over it. However, of course, losing that 16th of a mile and hoping to not get as good of a setup as she did last time. Charlie, anything you want to add? But obviously, finally, as a horse coming out of Kentucky Oaks, you'd imagine Irad hops aboard, will be bet again. This is another one coming from Tampa, right in the winner of the Virginia Oaks, going into the Derby. Eclipse, Irad. I mean, why don't we have this horse anywhere?
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair question. I briefly on the 6, and I'll go more deeply into the 7. I agree with a lot of what you said. I just thought it was so bold, of Shug to send this one into the, into the Gulfstream Oaks off of, running a maiden special weight at only 6.5 at Tampa. And I don't mind that effort at all. I almost feel like it's good when you see an effort like that, because especially to bounce back on it after claiming it, just so, he had the confidence to see something to throw her in the deep end. And not only that, but for, her to go off at 8-1, I thought also spoke volumes in that field. And then came back and ran a really nice race against Dry Powder, who I believe was a horse that, if I'm remembering correctly, was bet decently that day. And I know Scottish Lassie, sorry, that's who it was. Scottish Lassie was the one who was bet really heavy that day and was able to beat her. So I think this one's interesting underneath. I just need to see it again before I'd be ready to put her on top if she makes sense. But yeah, going into Fondly, I don't know. This is one I've always personally been against her. Her debut, I thought, was fine, benefited from a nice pace setup, clearly looked like a horse who wanted more distance. Then got an absolute dream setup with Irad aboard, got a perfect ride at Colonial. And I don't know, maybe I'm a little biased because I've always really liked early on, and I had bet early on that day, and I thought she ran a much better race than Fondly, and Fondly just held off and was wildly overbet in that race, but obviously the public got away with it, again, with the dream trip she just held. And then went to the Oaks, was clearly overmatched, but, why not, I guess, take a shot and throw her in there. Didn't really do much running, tried to save ground and sit a stalking trip, and then was just empty. For me, she's just one that's never done it for me, and I think it's just going to be overbet when you see its motion and Irad. I just need to see it from her. I've never really been moved by her, and for a horse where people are going to see the connections, they're going to see the races that she's been entered in and who she's ran against. I think you're getting, somewhere in the 3-1 to 4-1 range, and for me personally, in this spot, I wouldn't take less than 6-1 on her.
Yeah, and the one thing I do like about Fondly is the fact that Grand Motion right after the Oaks basically shipped her straight up to Delaware. So we talk about trainer intent a lot. Of course, it makes a ton of sense from that standpoint. However, I think she's going to be wildly overbet for what I think she is at this point in her career, which is very light on figs. Could, of course, take another step forward, but man, I mean, she'd need to improve a pretty decent amount to be competitive in this race, and she's going to be pretty hardly bet for a horse that doesn't have those type of figures, at least in my opinion. In the Delaware Oaks, guys, I'm going 5-6-4, as well as Patrick's also going 5-6-4. Charlie's going 4-5-6. Guys, moving into the last race, which is the end of the late pick 5, of course, but it's not a stakes race. It's a maiden special weight going a mile and the 16th on the turf, and we won't spend as much time on it, guys. We'll probably talk about our top picks, then move on. However, this race is very, very competitive in here. I'm going 4-2-8. Pat's going 4-6-2. Charlie's going 5-7-1. As you'll see as I bring up the Equibase right now, Pat and I are both going with the morning line favorite in the last race. Richard Feynman for IRAD and Graham Motion at 3-1. Second choice, number 2, Divino for Stidham at 4-1. And your third choice is number 1, Hopes Alive at 5-1. Pat, you and I are both going with Richard Feynman. Charlie, you are going with Flamenco Star, the Maryland bred Sonny Leone, the name that probably has not been mentioned on this podcast ever, I would probably say, unless we talked about Gulfstream that one time, because that's where he ended up running after, of course, that fantastic ride on Rich Strike. But shows up here, coming off a race. If he runs back to that Delaware race last year, he has a ton of chance. However, it's a pretty long layoff since then.
Yeah, look, got the ultimate equipment change, Kyle, which I know you always love to hear someone say.
Yep.
But look, seems to be working steadily enough in the mornings. As you pointed out, obviously, aside from the equipment change aside, hasn't been seen in a year. Look, this race is wide open. Again, we didn't have the morning lines, but I just had to figure with it not being major connections, I'd get a decent price. And for me, honestly, this would probably be a near all button. I would, if I were playing it horizontally, I would probably single Admiral Dennis. I'd probably look in some of the earlier legs we covered, maybe single Cinnamaro, go 2 deep there. And then I think, honestly, in the distance race we covered in this race, I don't know if you guys agree, but those feel like the 2 races that you should really spread. And I think in the Oaks, you probably go 1 or 2 deep, depending on who you really like or not. I'd probably go 4 and 5. But yeah, I landed on the 5 here. Like you said, at least I know likes the course, ran a really solid effort there. That figure absolutely fits. I also just like when you get to these weird fields where no one's that strong. I think you'd agree, Kyle. We talk about the importance of not having to worry much about passing. And I just like that with her versatility, at least, or his versatility, we at least see, you know, Delaware was able to sit forward, so he's not afraid to go to the lead if there isn't much pace. And even if there is, you know, and the debut was obviously way out of it and then closed up. And I get ran 5th, but only lost by a length. So I just feel like, you know, there's versatility, you know, it'll be close. I just think obviously the question is going to be the layoff, but is working decently, appears at least with that, you know, minute flat on the turf. So seems to be working. And that was on good turf too. So seems to be working decently enough. I'm going to take a shot here with a horse that I'll get every bit of 6-1 on.
I mean, look, I like it a lot. I don't have the horse anywhere, neither does Pat. But again, this race is so tough. Couldn't agree with you more, Charlie, that this horse has a chance in this race. Pat, you and I are both going with Richard Feynman in here. I just really like that race at Laurel last time. Again, you can kind of excuse the dirt efforts. However, it has been showing better and better. All 3 starts, puts the blinkers up. Puts the blinkers on in here as well. I mean, this is Galileo in the breeding. This is intermission. I mean, this horse should have every right to be a pretty decent horse. Just hasn't put it together yet, but has all the makings of one that can put it together in a race like this.
Yeah, Kyle, you hit on the head. Put a line through that last race here. And this horse is in with a big shot, and I think could have a big summer. I really, you know, I think we'll get the blinkers for the first time. You know, that race on the turf, you know, the horse did get to the top of the lane and into the stretch and was you know, in first. And it was, you know, they did start to slow up a little bit towards the end, but I thought the horse that, you know, in the stretch had a huge shot and then just kind of fell out of it. So the blinkers could come in, you know, with to provide, you know, a lot of help to Richard Feynman in here. And then, Kyle, I just want to hit on the 6 really quick.
Yeah, please.
My Vacation, because this horse is 20-1. And listen, I understand, but they were trying to get this horse on the turf, you know, back on May 22nd, and you know, the weather just didn't cooperate. And this horse should not be 20-1. You know, I believe has been working fairly well from just seeing some things. You know, there was a little bit of a gap, but 20-1, no chance. I will definitely have this horse, and you will see shortly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I know that you think highly of this horse. So again, love to hear, again, any type of horse that's double digits like this, especially in a wide open race, go with your gut, take it for Sure, guys. Let's move into best bets here. Of course, then we're going to end the show again, guys. Thank you guys all so much for all the viewership, all the likes. Again, if you're enjoying it, please hit the like button. We would greatly, greatly appreciate it. No matter if you're watching live or as a replay, every single little thing helps us here on the HHH Racing Podcast. So thank you very much. Guys, let's move into best bets. Charlie, I have you first, so I will let you go first. And very based, my friend. Way 6, win on the number 1, Sidamara, and in race number 8, you're going a double 3 with 4. And of course, that is Admiral Dennis into the Delaware Park Oaks, where you liked Margie's Intention. Ice cold, Matt Miller, favorite double.
Yeah, I'm just going to keep this very simple. I actually was against the favorite, and I think 3 or 4 of the races we covered. But for me, like I said, we covered 5 races, and I said, for the late pick 5, and I said 2 of them are wide open. So I'm focusing on the 2 races that are the 3 races that I don't think are wide open. Look, I know Sidamara, there's going to be questions and concerns, but I'm trusting Belmont and Junior Alvarado. She had a lot of hype earlier in her career. I know it's a layoff, but like you had talked about earlier, Kyle, with me, she has all these bullet works. I think she's primed for a big spot here, effort here. And I'm going to take a chance on her when in a race, where Gunsong for me just hasn't been doing it lately. And then going into my double again, I think Admiral Dennis, if he can just break fine, lays over this field, in my opinion. Another one where kind of similar to Sidamara, where it's another horse where he had a lot of hype in his own right. It was supposed to be on the Derby trail. I think this is a great get-right spot for him as well. I think he's tactical and can sit a nice stalking trip again as long as he makes the break. He's not meant to be as far back as he has been in the past, but he's just had some difficulty. And like Howard had pointed out in the chat, maybe now he's had some time off to mature. And then going into Margie's Intentions, again, for me, just an ultra consistent, versatile horse. I understand what you guys are saying with the, the good trip, and I absolutely hear you. And, realistically, I'd probably play a small 3-5 double as well after hearing what you guys had to say, to hedge myself a little bit. But I'm going to trust Margie's Intention. She did it for me last time. She's been ultra consistent. And I just feel like, to an extent, we talk about horses making their own trips with how much talent they have. And I think she can work out a nice one here as well.
Yeah, look, I completely understand. Obviously, I don't agree with you in the Delaware Park Oaks. However, you make some really good points. So, Charlie, good luck with your best bets. Pat, you kind of already tipped your hand on one of them, but going with your best bets, race number 7 starts a pick 3 for you in the Cape Henlopen. However, you're going to need to add one more horse in there, my friend. But either way, going 4-6, Dripping Gold and Harrow, with singling number 8 in the Delaware Derby, that being, of course, Surfside Moon. And your third leg, is the Delaware Park Oaks, going 5-6, trying to beat Margie's Intention, which you'll see in a bit, is the way I'm going as well, with Paris Lily and Cassiar. And the race number 10, the horse you just talked about, trifecta keying the number 6, My Vacation.
Yeah, Kyle, you said everything that I have. And what I'll say is this: in the first leg of the pick 3, why not add Vote No in there, right?
That's right.
Root for the group. I'm looking for a price in that leg anyway. But listen, I really like Surfside Moon on Saturday. That's going to be my key to mostly all my bets. So that's why I have, him singled in there. I'm going to take a shot with the tri-key. The horse is 20-1. So I'm going to play this horse in second and third only, and play a decent amount of horses in first. So yeah, that's my bet. This is a fun sequence. I'm glad we got to cover this. Delaware Park should be a fun Saturday. Hopefully the weather permits, and it'll be great.
Weather looking permitting right now. And of course, shout out to my man Racer Sharp Picks, who is a very big supporter of the channel and has his own channel. He's a Delaware Park guy, so I'm sure he'll be watching later. Greatly appreciate him supporting the show as always. And guys, I've already hit on both of mine. I mean, it's as easy as this. Win on the number 1, Sidamara, in race 6. Charlie hit on everything. I really think she's sitting on go. The layoff is a concern, but I feel like it's very, very minor with the way she's working. Plus, it allows us to get a little bit better of a price, I think, than we would otherwise. And in race number 9, I'm irresponsible wager of the week, ladies and gentlemen. Win on the number 5, Paris Lily. And if you want to turn it into a little bit more of a money maker to you, singling Admiral Dennis in the race before, I completely agree with everything Charlie said, and just trying to beat the number 4, Margie's Intention, which of course spikes that value for us in the double pool. So I'll include the number 6, Cassiar, on a smaller double, kind of Dutch it type of beat to try and beat, again, a pretty heavy favorite in my eyes. It's going to be the number 4, Margie's Intention. Guys, this sequence, I'm very happy that we got to cover Delaware Park. Delaware Park has, liked, retweeted my stuff. promoting this show. So big thanks to them. I'm very glad that they're getting a lot of eyes on them this weekend, with only Monmouth and Delaware Park running some pretty nice cards. So again, shout out to them for supporting the channel in any way possible. And they do I brought up Howard's thing before. They do have a late pick or a pick 5 starting in race 5 for all stakes. And it's actually, if there's a single unique ticket winner, if there's only one person that hits the pick 5 starting in race number 5, a single unique ticket is guaranteed a $25,000 payout. So even if it's all favorites, you still get a $25,000 payout. So again, Delaware Park trying to look out for the bettors. Greatly appreciate it. And we love supporting small tracks here on Bettin N Boozin and the HHH Racing Podcast. But of course, guys, tune in to tomorrow's show covering Haskell Preview Day, 8 p.m. Eastern, with Howard, Pete, and Paul on Picks and Ponies. And they actually have a very big interview with Junior Alvarado, talking about, of course, his win in the Belmont Stakes. So definitely not going to want to miss that. And of course, Great Race Plays comes after that for the final show for Santa Anita. Greatly appreciate them sponsoring the podcast. And on Sunday at let me double check the time for you guys right now, at 3 p.m. as of right now, could be moved to early morning, but we have a preview show for Royal Ascot Day 1 and Day 2, covering with Final Furlong podcast host Emmett Kennedy. And on June 17th, a week from yesterday, next Tuesday, as of this recording, we are going to go live for Royal Ascot during the races with Davey Lane, huge member of this podcast, who writes international the tip sheet for the team HHH people through our website. But of course, guys, this has been episode 134 of Bettin N Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast, covering Delaware Oaks and Delaware Derby Day of 2025. And until next time, everybody, crush those bets, win those photos, and stay safe, everyone. We'll see you in the next one. Have a good night.